Hello there, very good evening and welcome to your primetime news bulletin. I'm Shane Silva.
I'm Stephanie Lazarus. Before we head into your stories in detail, here's a look at the headlines for tonight.
UNP Uva Provincial Councillor Tissa Kuttiarachchi extends his support to the President. Accept ministerial portfolios in the government that will be established after the victory. An invitation from Maithripala Sirisena to all parties in Parliament. Sydney siege extends into the night. Over 30 people still being held hostage.
Now, news in detail. A special meeting presided by the Elections Commissioner Mahinda Deshapriya was held at the Polonnaruwa District Secretariat today. Divisional Secretaries of the North and East, police officers from both provinces, representatives of volunteer organisations and representatives from the Human Rights Commission were present for this meeting.
The reason for violation of human rights is the elderly and feeble not being provided with the required facilities to vote. Taking this and the advice provided by the observers from the Commonwealth, pregnant women, the elderly and those with special needs will not be made to wait in line to vote. An election rally to ensure the victory of President Mahinda Rajapaksa at the 2015 polls commenced this evening in Panadura.
This is the President's third public rally organised ahead of the presidential election in January 2015.
Mage mitra Maithripala Sirisena mahatmaya kiyenawa etumata weda koranne ila dunne nallo.
My friend Maithripala Sirisena says that he is not allowed to operate. I too served as the Minister of Health, but I never faced any issue. I worked well. I built hospitals. I brought forward a better index for the health in the country. Our President gave him more funds than I ever received as Health Minister.
Mama Saukya Matiwara ina kaleta wediya Vishal mudalak ape janadipatituma laba dunna. Mahinda Rajapaksa janadipatituma ratata galapenawa.
President Mahinda Rajapaksa favours the country and the country favours President Mahinda Rajapaksa. It's something like when our mothers crack coconut shells at home.
We work
really hard in the Kaluthura district. We will gain more votes for the President this time than on the previous occasion. I have no doubt about this. Victory is definite. It will be a resounding victory for the President on the 9th of January. I wish everyone a bright future. When I told my mother that I was making this decision, she told me that I was making the correct decision and said that it will be Mahinda Rajapaksa who will win. When I announced my decision, my mother said what she felt. So I made a decision. I can tell you this, no one can prevent President Mahinda Rajapaksa from winning for a third time.
The presidential candidate of the New Democratic Front, Maithripala Sirisena, says that all parties will be invited to join hands with the new government that will be formed after achieving victory. He made this statement at a rally that was held in Yapahua yesterday.
A rally was organised in the Yapahua electorate as part of a series of rallies that were held in the Kurunegala district yesterday. Attending the rally, opposition leader of the Mahawe Pradesh Sabha R. Premadasa, who pledged his support to the government in the recently concluded provincial council elections, extended his support to Maithripala Sirisena.
ජනාධිපති ධූරයේ වැඩ කරපු කිසි කෙනෙක්
No person who has held the post of president has been there for a third term. Even those who were there for 2 terms have not completed their terms. We invite all political parties represented in parliament to take up ministerial positions in our government. The economy is collapsing in the country today. The biggest problem in the country today is that the poor cannot afford 3 square meals and they cannot have hope in a better economy in the future. Under the government that we establish, priority will be given to establishing a better economy for the poor and to establish a prosperous country. Today, the anti-government wave in this election campaign is being led by the youth. Why have the youth become angered by the government? Because they always say a tomorrow for the youth in the villages, but the youth in the royal family have a today. For 10 years, they have had a today for the youth. Mahinda Rajapaksa boasts of massive public support, but if he has so much support, then why would they put up cutouts on every road in every village?
Meanwhile, another rally was organised under the auspices of Maithripala Sirisena in Warriapoli yesterday. These are the views that were expressed by some of the public representatives who came forward to render their support to him.
We cannot win an election by any means. This is a country of educated people. We should mention that computer tactics could not be implemented if the voters are going to exercise their franchise in order to defeat the government. How can you rig the elections given the fact that 90% of the state officials support Maithripala Sirisena? They are saying that the economy could collapse, development could be in a limbo and the country could be led to a decrepit state of affairs if Maithripala Sirisena is elected. If this development that is centered on commissions could collapse, that could be for the best. Then what's left to be safeguarded? Living at the expense of the people is a degrading affair. Is the person who stole millions of rupees in tsunami aid when the people were suffering and deposited it in his sister's account a patriot? The Sri Lanka Freedom Party is split into 2. I am displeased when seeing some ministers of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. I saw recently the manner in which Minister Janaka Bandara Tennakun was wailing because he was concerned about the party. We are not hoping to take the people who are involved in corruption from there. We are hoping to bring in the good people, keeping in mind the betterment of the country. That is our hope for today.
The future of your children should not lie in the hands of the corrupt and its soothsayers and the prophecies. I remember Maithripala Sirisena being given a hand with oil on it. It is good that he didn't return the gesture. We were wondering whether he will give his hand as there was oil on his. That is an open secret. You can see it. You can see the state the country is in. The big beaded chains, horoscopes and other superstitious items and the drug peddlers and murderers cannot change the decision the country has made.
UNP Uva Provincial Councillor Janaka Tissa Kutiarachchi pledged his support to President Mahinda Rajapaksa today.
UNP Uva Provincial Councillor Tissa Kutiarachchi met with President Mahinda Rajapaksa at Temple Trees this morning. Kutiarachchi, who has served as a councillor on the Uva Provincial Council for 5 years, is also the UNP organiser for the Mahiyangani electorate.
UNP Uva Provincial Councillor Tissa Kutiarachchi, who expressed his support to President Mahinda Rajapaksa early in the day, participated in a media briefing convened by the UPFA.
This is just the beginning. There are 2 more who will definitely express their support. There are 2 more who said they will support the government and told them they will topple them. As young provincial councillors, we have come forward to render our support to the President without leaving the United National Party so that we will be able to contribute to political decisions.
ජානක තිස්ස කුට්ටිආරච්චි ගරු මන්ත්‍රීතුමන් පක්ෂය ආරක්ෂා කරමින් වැඩ විශාල මෙහෙවරක් කරා.
Janaka Tissa Kutiarachchi has rendered a great service while supporting the party. We extended an open invitation, which she understood during this decisive election. There is no indecision as to whether or not he will win, because Mahinda Rajapaksa will win. He came here today to join hands with us, with the support of the other UN peers, in an election which will determine the country's tomorrow and our fate.
ඉරණම තීරණය කරන මැතිවරණයකදී ඒ පක්ෂයේ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ සියලුම දෙනාගේ සහයෝගයත් අරගෙන අපිට අපේ නායකයාට සහයෝගය ලබා දෙන්න අද මෙතුමාන් අපිත් එක්ක අත්වැල් බැඳ ගන්නවා.
Former President Chandrika Bandaranayake Kumaratunga says that the Sri Lanka Freedom Party is no longer People's Party. She made this statement while addressing a gathering in Dompe yesterday.
The former head of state was joined by several others who addressed the event held in Kuttiwala, Dompe.
Ada Sri Lanka Idhas Pakshe horunge casino karenge.
Today, the Sri Lanka Freedom Party is reigned by thieves, drug dealers and casino owners. Large-scale drug lords in the country are ministers. Two of the biggest moonshine brewers in the country are government ministers. The SLFP has turned out to be their nursery, a nursery for the thieves. This is no longer People's Party. We have claimed this party once again. We need to rebuild it by cleansing it to a state of purity. By joining with all the other parties, especially through the merging of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and the United National Party, we will complete this task. Even Mahinda is running a common front government with 67 UN peers. There are members who won on the elephant symbol under the colour green. So it is no big deal if we merge with a UNP. I'm saying this to the SLF peers. But our parties are not merging together to commit fraud or murder. We are doing it to rebuild the country.
There are minor repairs to be done in the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. If we are to carry out the repairs while being members of the party, we will lose our heads. Therefore, we will carry out repairs from outside the party, but this also holds a risk. Houses are being surrounded, defenders come and leave, files are being taken away by the bribery commission, files are examined, they are also trying to make files for us. We are being threatened, never mind.
එහෙම වෙන්නේ කොහමද? එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ පිරිසිදු කණ්ඩායමයි ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ.
Today we see the emergence of the UNP's clean faction and the SLFP's clean faction. Thereby victory certain. An unexpected alliance has come together towards a national victory. It is through this strength that we face the election.
රටේ ජයග්‍රහණයට එකමුතු වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ ශක්තියෙන් තමයි අපි මේ මැතිවරණයට මුහුණ දෙන්නේ.
United People's Freedom Alliance parliamentarian Nama Rajapaksa refuted several allegations levelled on the opposition political stage recently.
It was reported in the media that my father has given 3 helicopters to the 3 of us. I went to check if he had actually bought 3 helicopters without telling me. He had not. To see, it was 3 toy helicopters we bought when we were children on a trip to Kataragama. They were referring to the toy helicopters given to us as kids. This is a lie. At least lie in a way that you don't get caught. They say we go to Nura Elia to see horses. I do not know about horses owned by our family. But I do know that when Vimukti was at Temple Trees, there was a horse there. That is when Chandrika's son was there.
The UNP Electorate Council meeting in Tissamaharama took place today under the auspices of Deputy Leader of the UNP Electorate of the party, Sajith Premadasa.
Former SLFP Provincial Councillor H.R. Vijayasiri extended his support to Maithripala Sirisena at this meeting.
වෙබ්බඩවි 400ක් ආරම්භ කරලා එක එක කටකතා පතුරවනකොට
Around 400 websites have been created. When rumors are being spread, our supporters panic and ask various things from us. I decided to get on here and say that I will go. I will definitely go. But where? When Maithripala Sirisena becomes the president and when Ranil Wickremesinghe becomes the prime minister, I will go to each and every person and each and every house and say that we are on our way to establish our government.
මම මගේ ආණ්ඩුවකට අපේ ආණ්ඩුවකට අපි යනවායි කියන එක මේ අවස්ථාවේ කිය. මේ වෙනකොටත්
At present, 14 ministers and MPs have come forward to support our alliance. There is space for another 15 to 20 to join us. The doors of the UNP are open for persons who have never stolen. Our leaders too do not have any bad habits such as stealing. Our doors are open for clean slate politicians.
Parliamentarian Dr. Rajitha Senaratne says that the presidential election manifesto of Maithripala Sirisena will be released on the 19th of this month. Dr. Senaratne made this statement addressing a press conference along with a group of lawyers today.
Parliamentarian Dr. Rajitha Senaratne explained the future course of action during his address at a press conference organised by the Lawyers Collective towards good governance.
We invite you on the 19th, the day we release our manifesto. We invite all groups and organizations to grace the inaugural event where we will be releasing our election manifesto. We have received everything from our research. It all reveals that we will record a victory of over 55%. We will present an attractive manifesto to every section in the country. We have made calculations in billions as to how we will carry this forth. We will make the relevant decisions pertaining to how these funds will be acquired. Now we have received information on the $120 million deal with Israel. However, a member of the family has said that the sum be raised to $270 million. Now they have been saddened and they have made threats of deportation to them. So $150 million is pocketed. Those days there was a commission placed, a commission of 5% to 10% out of 100%. But now it is 4,000 to 5,000 for every 100%. This is a heinous crime. Now together with the Indian businessmen, this money has been deposited in foreign accounts. And we received details pertaining to the balance within one such account. $5.2 billion. 130 times of this is $650 billion. You can figure out the value. For every million counted, you simply multiply it by 1,000. Now we are receiving details as to who the actual owner of the Marriott Hotel in Dubai is and details as to who is the actual owner of Lanka in Sri Lanka. When these finances are brought out, we can provide enough funds for a period of 1 year with no problem whatsoever. We brought out a policy for all politicians. For every member of the society, we brought forth a policy which will give birth to disciplined politicians, which will in turn give shape to the existing politicians.
The brave decision taken by the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, the decision made by the genuine General Secretary is a decision made on behalf of the country's young generation. We send out our heartfelt wishes towards the victory and we are prepared to work with him. Meanwhile, UPFA Kotte Municipal Councillor Danuka Vishwajit also joined the press conference and pledged his support to Maithripala Sirisena. As soon as the people wake up, they wonder as to what they will be eating for breakfast, for lunch and what to eat for dinner. We need to eradicate this. I'm not afraid. Thereby, I join hands towards establishing a Maitri society.
A meeting of Kurunegala district members of the SLFP affiliated lawyers organisation was held last evening.
Lawyers who attended the meeting pledged their support to President Mahinda Rajapaksa.
Everyone has problems. I too have problems. But there is something we must think about. When looking at the situation in the country, it is evident that the head of state must be President Mahinda Rajapaksa.
They remember the lawyers only when an election is at hand. Lawyers are self-employed. If we earn, we live. What lawyers say implicitly is that as people who assist the government, it would be good if a government looks into us. We remind them every day. Nevertheless, in a decisive battle such as this, we will not betray our principles. Lawyers who attended the meeting were also given the opportunity to speak.
The problem that we have today is whether we can be satisfied as lawyers with the path that the government we established is on. We need to stand straight as lawyers and be able to cast aside our political affiliations. As lawyers, be it one of us or another individual that obtains privileges from the government and then works to steal the wealth of the people, we need to be able to stand straight and speak about it.
I think when you look at it at the village level, you can see that there are no tremors in the villages. The rural people are still strongly with His Excellency the President. The problems that we are facing are with some people who are in the middle ground and with the various views among the educated. We need to have one view, and that is to shoulder the task of ensuring the victory of His Excellency the President.
Here are some of the views that were expressed on the political stage.
My friends, there has never been a development era in the history of this country like the Rajapaksa era, where roads were built for our villages, electricity was given to our villages, and all the necessary equipment was given for our fields.
පාරවල් වලින් දූෂිත වංචනික ලෙස මංකොල්ල කාලා තියෙන හැටි අහනකොට
When I hear about how corrupt they have been in thieving money from the roads that are built, I cannot bear it. The maximum you would spend on a 4-lane highway is $4 million per kilometer. However, a sum of $16 million has been spent on the 4-lane highway from Colombo to Katunayaka.
හදන්න කිලෝමීටරයකට වැය කරපු අවම මුදල US ඩොලර් මිලියන 10ක්.
පොඩි පොඩි අඩුලුහුඬුකම් ඇති. ඒ අඩුලුහුඬුකම් අපි නිවැරදි කරගන්නවා.
There may be minor shortcomings. We will correct these shortcomings. We believe that we have the strength to bend, shape and change this for the future of this country. We can embark on this journey with President Mahinda Rajapaksa.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා සමග මේ ගමන යන්නයි අපිට පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ.
මේ ඉන්නේ බත් පැකට් එකට ආපු කට්ටිය නෙවෙයි.
These are not people who came for the rice packet. They did not come for the bottle of arak. They did not come to receive a bag of goodies. They did not come to receive sewing machines. I wish to say clearly that these are UNP leaders who came through the UNP. We can see now that we are at the turning point. When looking at this hall, we can see that our victory will be a resounding one. This time, the leaders in the UNP will come and want away. They will hold rallies, but no matter how many rallies they hold, they will vote for President Mahinda Rajapaksa. Lightning has struck the jack tree too. Ministers want to break away from the government today, but they have no means of doing so. They go on stage and cry. There is nothing that these ministers can do. They have become nothing.
The long wait continues. We have all the details of the Sydney siege coming up.
But before that, here's a short commercial break. Up next is Action TV.
On the 8th of August 2012, it was revealed that a memorandum of understanding between three factions had led to the establishment of the Ampara Solid Waste Management Facility in 2010. This was 10 months before the Ampara Urban Council was to take full control of the facility. At that time, the only responsibility of the Urban Council was to sort out degradable and non-degradable solid waste and deliver it to the facility. While the European Union contributed a sum of 1.7 billion rupees towards the construction of this facility, construction was undertaken under the supervision of local and foreign specialists attached to institutions under UN operations or UN Ops. When the specialists selected this plot of land for the facility, they were not unaware that wild elephants from the Buddangala Reserve travel across this location. When Action TV first carried an expose on the situation at this facility, it was a haven for mosquitoes and vermin, with an overwhelming stench resulting from the Urban Council's failure to sort out degradable and non-degradable solid waste when delivering it to the facility. In June 2013, the Urban Council took full control of the facility. Since then, a fourth faction, which was not involved in the initial MOU, has been aiding in the solid waste management. This fourth faction are the wild elephants who frequent the area. In the nights, this facility is like an elephant convention. It is also the wild elephants that have turned the fence around the facility into ruins. Their support towards waste management in the area is made evident when you inspect their droppings not only in the environs of the facility but also in the environs of the Budangala Reserve and adjacent roads. Recently, veterinarians attached to the Wildlife Department failed in their efforts to rescue a wild elephant from the Budangala Reserve which had fallen ill. The findings of the autopsy they conducted on the animal have truly brought into question the interpretation of the phrase waste management by authorities in Ampara.
The animal had wounds in its stomach and had been unable to consume food for about 2 weeks. Its intestines were full of water, polythene and garbage bags.
Shouldn't immediate steps be taken to resolve the issues at this waste management facility, which has been transformed into a wildlife eradication facility? Minister of Wildlife Resource Conservation, this is over to you.
At least 5 hostages have made a break for freedom from the besieged cafe in Australia's commercial capital, Sydney. The Sydney siege, as it has been dubbed, is now in its 12th hour.
A massive police operation is underway in the city's central business district as a situation which commenced at about 9:45 a.m. Sydney time today stretched into the night. The gunman holding people hostage in a Sydney cafe has been identified as an Iranian refugee who was on bail facing a number of charges.
Man Harun Monis, who received political asylum in Australia in 1996, was described by his former lawyer as an isolated figure. Monis, who styles himself on a Muslim cleric, is currently on bail for being an accessory to the murder of his former wife and is facing more than 40 sexual and indecent assault charges. He has also been convicted of sending offensive letters to the families of deceased Australian soldiers.
Central Sydney is in lockdown as police surround the cafe, continuing negotiations with the gunman.
President Mahinda Rajapaksa expressed his solidarity on Twitter with a message reading, quote, "Deeply disturbed about the hostage situation in Sydney and stand united with Australia in fighting terrorism," unquote. The International Desk reports.
A moment of sheer panic to relief and safety. 6 hours after they were taken captive, hostages started making a break for freedom. Dozens more still remain, the vacant expressions on their faces unrepresentative of the trauma they must be experiencing. It was only 3 months ago that Australia raised its terror threat level from medium to high for the first time since the system was introduced in the year 2003. However, despite such a move, at 9:45 this morning, the small Lind Cafe, which sits in the heart of the Sydney's financial district, came under attack by a suspected militant who forced 2 female hostages, including a worker and a customer, to hold a black flag containing Arabic writing against the window of the cafe. The flag was identified as a generic Shahada, featuring the expression of the Islamic State. An armed man wearing a backpack and a bandana could be seen walking around inside the cafe.
Very bad and sad thing during this festive season.
I would rather be in there with them than be out here not knowing, you know?
It's a bit weird, like I've never seen anything like this happen. Like it's probably the first time in Australian history that something this major in regards to a terrorist threat has happened.
I walked up the stairs to get my coffee at the Link Cafe, and for some reason this morning I decided to get it at the station underneath. And sorry, for some reason I did that, and then I just got pushed back by the police.
He demanded an ISIS flag and a phone call with Prime Minister Tony Abbott. However, the police said they are still unsure of the motivation behind the gunman holding a number of hostages.
We don't yet know the motivation of the perpetrator. We don't know whether this is politically motivated, although obviously there are some indications that it could be. The whole point of politically motivated violence is to scare people out of being themselves.
Apart from raising its terror threat for the first time in its history in September, Prime Minister Tony Abbott had also committed 600 troops to fight against Islamic State as part of a multilateral effort to defeat terrorism. Concern has been growing in Australia in recent months over the effect on domestic security of Australian nationals fighting with or sympathizing with Islamic militant groups in Iraq and Syria.
We are now joined by our bureau correspondent in Sydney, Lachlan Kitchen, for the latest.
The Sydney siege is now entering its 13th hour with a dozen hostages still inside the Link Cafe in Sydney's Martin Place. The police are in regular contact with the gunmen inside. This alters from this afternoon, where previously police were communicating via the hostages who were allowed access to their phones and social media. Around 90 minutes ago, the lights were turned off inside the cafe by a staff member being held hostage. We still don't know if this was under the orders of police or the gunmen, with police wearing night vision goggles and now at one of the main exits of the cafe. Police have said their only concern and their only focus is on getting the hostages out alive. Relatives of the hostages have also gathered in Sydney. The government has advised and asked many people to work from tomorrow to not travel into the city. However, the government has asked people to carry on as usual. This is Lachlan Kitchen reporting for Newsfirst from Sydney, Australia.
Now on to more developments of the story. Police have stormed the cafe in Sydney where the lone gunman was holding several people hostage. And Australia's public broadcaster ABC News tweeted a few minutes ago that the siege was now over. ABC also reported that 2 people have been killed while 3 are in critical condition. It is not yet confirmed if the gunman is among the victims. Many hostages who had been held captive for more than 16 hours were seen to be rushing out amid gunfire and explosions heard at the site.
And with that, we're going moving back to local news now. 2 persons lost their lives when a mine shaft located under an abandoned house in Tiruvanakattiya in Ratnapura collapsed. Police media spokesperson SSP Ajit Rohan has said that the tragedy took place at around 9 this morning.
The 2 persons who perished in the incident had dug a tunnel under the house and had been trapped when the shaft collapsed 15 feet into the tunnel. The police said that the group had been engaged in illegal mining from this abandoned house. A major rescue effort was launched, but by the time rescuers reached the duo, they were already dead. The deceased were both residents from Marapana, Ratnapura.
And on this first tonight, the National Trade Union Centre says that workers in the hotels and tourism sector are facing a number of issues, including low wages. NTUC Chairman K.D. Lalkantha made this statement addressing an international conference which commenced in Colombo today.
The second international conference of hospitality and tourism trade unions commenced in Colombo today with the participation of several foreign delegates. In Sri Lanka
too, there is a new discussion on the tourism industry. Employees in this sector face the same problems that employees in all other sectors face. In truth, their wages are extremely low. Wages in Sri Lanka and across the world in this sector are low. They make some sort of money only through the service charge. But it is not considered a wage. It does not go into their EPF and ETF, and it is not considered if they apply for a loan from a bank. Mahela Jayawardene wants to bow out in style as the Sri Lanka batsman gears up for his final ODI on home soil against England, saying that it was an extraordinary experience to play his debut and final ODI at the R. Premadasa Stadium in Colombo. He made this statement at the press briefing held ahead of the final ODI, which will be played tomorrow at the R. Premadasa Stadium as a day-night encounter.
Jayawardene, one of the outstanding batsmen, fielder and captains of his generation, is to retire after this winter's World Cup, marking the end of a 17-year-long career. The 37-year-old has played in a total of 428 one-day internationals. As captain, Mahela Jayawardene was instrumental in guiding Sri Lanka to the final of the 2007 World Cup.